Hello my friends and welcome back, and happy Thursday to you and happy 1st of February. You survived most of the week, so you're probably going to make it through this week. I survived Ukraine, but I'm sick. Yeah, the tension drop, when you go somewhere, missiles are flying, you have the fear of death, and you come back from that place, regular Tuesday, and the tension drops, the suspense, you get sick. So I got sick. So I'm trying to rest. But you are my priority, so I'll make a video for you still. And I'm going to USA after tomorrow, so I better get well by then. But news from Ukraine. Yesterday, Ukraine conducted a huge aerial operation in occupied Crimea. They attacked 4 Russian military bases, and that included airfields. We have preliminary rumored information. We have nothing confirmed, but rumored information is that 3 Russian planes were destroyed while on the ground. 2 Su-27s and 1 Su-30. So if that is true, that's a huge kaboom loss for Russia. I'm sure they went up in flames in a magnificent way. So here you can see the map of which Russian military bases were attacked. We have Saki, we have Rostolne, we have Sevastopol and Feodosia. The largest explosions happened in Baalbek in occupied Crimea, and this was probably the main target also because there it was where 3 of those planes were destroyed. And of course Russians do have radars in Crimea. They saw the missiles up in the air, but there was an issue of getting those 3 planes off the ground to try to shoot the missiles down or get them away from the explosions. Therefore they exploded. Oops. I'll also read you a report that supposedly comes from the Russian Ministry of Defense. Bad news from Crimea. We lost 3 planes and more than 20 military personnel. Sources in the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff told us new details of the large-scale missile strike on Crimea and Sevastopol, which the enemy, the Ukrainians, launched on Wednesday, January 31st. The enemy, according to updated data, fired 24 missiles. We failed to shoot down 5 of them. Well, if the Russian Ministry of Defense takes in a huge blow like the loss of these 3 planes is, it would make sense for them to inflate the Ukrainian missile numbers, because if it's only 5 missiles that did this damage, it looks really bad for the Russians. So it was 25 missiles and we shot down most of them, but we didn't shoot down 5. We don't really know how many missiles were fired, but I'm guessing it wasn't 24. If it was Storm Shadows, then only 3 possibly, or 4. At the Baalbek airfield, according to verified information, 3 aircraft, 2 Su-27s and 1 Su-30 were lost. 2 of them are seriously damaged, but there are still a chance to repair them. 1 plane, unfortunately, was completely destroyed. The missile hit it directly. Also, 12 military personnel were KIA near the airfields, and more than 10 were injured. Some of the planes did not have the time to take off after receiving a signal about the missile threat. In this regard, we suffered such heavy losses. I'm not going to read you the rest of it, but you get the idea. Huge kaboom, hooray for Ukraine. My friends, I want to watch a video with you. This is a Russian Mi-24. Boom, you can see, nose goes up, it fires the missiles. We have seen this done time and time again by Ukrainian choppers and by Russian choppers. You put the nose up, the missiles fly further because these are unguided, dumb missiles from the Soviet era. They're quite old. And now, what makes this video cool is we have a drone up above seeing actually where the missiles land. And I've always wondered, if you shoot the missiles up, they're unguided, you're in a moving chopper, how precise can the missiles be? They're unguided, their ballistic trajectory in a moving chopper. I mean, you're not going to hit anything ever. So in this video, we can actually see the targeting area of these unguided chopper missiles. Keep an eye on that field. Look at that. Look, they are covering a field, an entire area. I'll look at that again. Look at this. I don't know if it aimed exactly there or if it didn't, but I'm assuming you're in a moving chopper, 50, 60 kilometers per hour, perhaps more. You're guiding up, you're shooting, unguided. Perhaps the chopper was even aiming into this area or this area where my cursor is. I mean, we cannot verify, but I'm guessing these are not very accurate missiles. That this works like a very inaccurate Soviet-type artillery barrage that is a strongly area weapon, and if they're not filled with very dense shrapnel, then this, it's quite an unprecise attack and wouldn't do much damage. But I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments, please. Now, my friends, once more to give you an eye candy because you just came onto this video. I want to make you happy for this. This is just a visually very pleasing video. This is a Ukrainian-built land drone, and the soldier you just saw was attaching plastic explosives onto this drone. Now, we're talking about, what, 40 kilograms of explosives, 50, something like that, as much as a Shahed drone. It's like a Shahed on the ground. Now, what is this drone going to do? We see it going there, on the ground. A bird was flying away there. So there's a long video of this drone riding over the hostile territory, no man's land. There's a Russian destroyed tank right here. And the adventures take this drone to a Russian-held bridge. Now, obviously, not a very important bridge. As you can see, if it's hit, you can just come down here with a tank. Doesn't really matter. But it shows you what these drones can do. It plants itself beautifully under the bridge, 40 kilograms of explosives attached to it. And what happens next? Bada bing, bada boom. The bridge is demilitarized and knocked out cold. Russians cannot use that bridge anymore. Now, possibly this was a test if these kind of drones work, and they do work. It just goes to show you how the ingenuity of the Ukrainians. It's genius, if it works. My friends just came back from Ukraine. As I said, I'm a little bit sick, but I want to show you in this video, because in every video I'll show you snippets of my journey. In this one, I actually want to highlight the coming back part, because we go there about 30-35 hours of driving. We come back 24 hours, out of which like 16 is on a train and then a plane also, and you know, a lot of traveling. So the train from Kiev to Warsaw is this old, nostalgic Soviet type train. So I'll show you a minute-long video how this looked like for me. My friends, now we're in the train from Kiev to Chelm, and from Chelm we're gonna hop on another train to Warsaw. But Kiev to Chelm is about, what, 12 to 14 hours, so these are these old Soviet type trains that we don't have in Estonia anymore because we don't have the distances in Estonia. But here, yeah, you got 4 bunk beds in a train. Today is the first time in my 6 trips to Kiev that we don't have the other 2, let's call them inmates then, in the bunk bed. So the first time I'm gonna sleep down, otherwise I usually have to take us up. But yeah, you see I'm a big dude. I don't have any room. It's fucked up crazy. I cannot, you're falling, yeah? Yeah, so going up, going down, it don't matter. You don't have room. You're gonna sleep like a baby like that, in a fetus position. And it's crazy hot in here. People usually drink sometimes. You can go in the joints of the 2 wagons and it's like all clunky, and outside you can have a cigarette there. So this is very cramped, but it's such a cool experience, which we don't have in Estonia anymore. Yeah, see you in Chelm, Warsaw. My friends, yesterday was a very important day for 207 Ukrainian fighters, because they were released from Russian captivity in one of the biggest prisoner exchanges between Russia and Ukraine. And in this time, it was 207 Ukrainian fighters who returned home against 195 Russian fighters who returned home. But I don't want to say home because they're probably sent to the front immediately. Well, the thing is, it's the first exchange that Ukrainians received more troops than the Russians, possibly because amongst the 195 Russians there were officers. And I was talking to a certain GUR, high-ranking officer in Ukraine, quite a lot, asking quite a lot of questions, and this is not OPSEC, so I can tell you this. What this officer told me, and this comes from a very, very internal source in the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense hierarchy, Russian and Ukrainian armies are very different. And it's going to sound weird, and you maybe don't agree with me, but the Russian officer corps is pretty good. They're good, well-trained. Their training is more modern than the Ukrainian officer corps. Majority of their officers are better trained. The Russian soldier is nothing. It's below nothing. It's treated like an animal, treated like meat. They don't know how to fight, how to have situational awareness on the battlefield. They're just used for their biomass. It's the opposite in Ukrainian army. The soldier is very well trained, very educated, intelligent, and can fight even alone. Perfect soldier. But the officer corps is from the Soviet era, mostly. I'm not saying all of them, but the vast majority, the thousands, are from the Soviet era. Why is this? And you might not agree with me or have some emotional reaction to this information. But I also asked, why do you think this way? I mean, but this is GUR who is telling me this information. The Russians started massive modernization of their military 2008, 9, 10, 11. After the Georgian War, they did a massive change in their officer corps. Yes, the Russian army is very corrupt. The soldiers are not trained at all and they're horrible. But the officer corps was actually focused down and modernized. And they had about 10 years before the full-scale invasion began of fully modernizing the training of their officer corps, which was modernized from the Soviet era onto 21st century. Ukraine did not do that. Ukraine has also thousands of officers, but most of them were trained in the 90s and 2000s according to the old Soviet doctrine. And they carry that on to nowadays. It's not easy to modernize an officer. You have trained for 15, 20 years, you have learned, you cannot change like that. Even if you have 3 weeks of training in the UK, this doesn't change. Your basic DNA stays where you trained 20 years ago. So Ukrainian officer corps, since they didn't have that 10-year modernization period after the Georgian War, is very heavily with the Soviet training, while Russian officer corps is not. The difference is the soldier. On the front line, Russian soldier is a biomass meat bag, while a Ukrainian soldier is vastly intelligent compared to the Russian one. And that is a very big difference. Now, again, if you want to oppose to this, put it in the comments, I'll read it. But again, I didn't know this information, and this comes from a GUR source that is very deeply connected to Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and has sources in the Russian Ministry of Defense. Very cool information. My friends, I'm not here to spread any rumors, but there are rumors, and this is what they are, that Ukrainians have opened another small offensive operation across the Dnipro River in Krinky, the settlement. You see, this here is the bridgehead that Ukraine is holding. About 500 troops are liberating this town here in the forest. And this small area here is when the new offensive operation. Now, if this is going on, great. It forces Russians to divert even more attention to this area. And they have not been able to push out this bridgehead of 500 Ukrainian troops for 6 months almost, which is a huge loss for the Russians. Now, secondly, I do want to kill any hype from the get-go, because the situation for the Ukrainians all across the front right now is active defense. They have no capabilities or equipment or manpower for large-scale offensive operations, and that's not the goal. The main goal right now is to preserve the manpower and make Russians lose as much manpower as possible by defending highly defendable areas. So if we see any offensive operations right now, they are localized, they're counteroffensives or positional battles. So I'm not here to make any big hype that, oh, new offensive is happening. In my eyes, the way I see it and the way I'm talking to Kurr and SPU, no big major offensives are coming on the front, because right now it's not the time for it. What Ukraine is doing extremely well is destroying Russian assets in the rear via drones and missiles, because Ukrainians are insanely clever and they are making drones that just demilitarize Russia in Russia. But unfortunately on the front you need different capabilities that Ukraine cannot produce right now. Like manpower, massive amount of tanks, artillery and planes. This is the frontal situation. So this is a localized operation across the Krinky, but it's still very cool. Talking about these drones and Ukrainian capabilities going deep into Russian rear. I'll say this again, I'll say it the way you like it. Ukrainian assets penetrating deep into Russian rear. That's really what is happening, because early morning yesterday, Ukraine again sent drones to St. Petersburg. Now St. Petersburg physically from where I'm now is about 4 hours of driving. So it's very close to me. You're watching this from the USA, it's your next town basically. 4 hours of driving in St. Petersburg. And Ukraine is sending drones there almost weekly now. This shows us two things: that Russian air capabilities, air defense capabilities in the second biggest Russian city and Putin's favorite city in Russia are weak or non-existent. Why are Ukrainian drones reaching that target? And secondly, that Ukraine has the capability to send drones 1,000 kilometers deep into hostile territory without them being shot down. This tells us a lot about Ukrainian capabilities. They cannot charge on the front because they don't have that capacity, but what they can do is annihilate the Russian rear, and they're doing that. Now, the target in St. Petersburg was the oil processing plant. Ukraine is focusing down, demilitarizing or knocking out cold Russian export articles like ports, oil terminals, gas terminals, oil processing plants, stuff like that. They are the targets because this war is funded by fossil fuels from Russia going to other countries. The money is funding the tanks and everything, the genocide in Ukraine. So Ukraine is now focusing this down. Each one of these attacks takes, 15 million a day away from the Russian budget. Yeah, we're talking about millions per day these one attack eliminates. So these attacks are efficient in narrowing down Putin's wallet. My friends, what you see right here is, I love this stuff. This is an AN-64 radar, but it's not real. It's a dummy. It's a really just circulating dummy. The fact that it circulates, very easy to make. You buy the cheapest motor, what, like $50, you make it circulate. Easy. You put a very small battery, done. And the rest of this stuff, cheap metal here, I think the whole thing costs like $200, $300, maybe $500, because metal is cheap in Ukraine right now. You can melt the Russian old infantry fighting vehicles and make these dummies and make them turn like that for what, $500. Now, in reality, this radar would cost tens of millions. It's not tens of millions. Now, the fact is, this is a dummy. Doesn't work, doesn't do anything, just a empty hull, empty body. These will be made in mass and put on the front line, so Russia will be attacking these because this is a high-value target for any military in the world, and Russians will be using their Lancer drones, which are unfortunately incredibly effective killing machines. They will be using their FPV drones, which are as effective as the Ukrainian ones. This is a way to soak up Russian drone capabilities, and it does it marvelously. And Russians blow it up and they're like, oh yeah, we destroyed this Western radar. And Budanov is like, excellent, my plan is working. So yeah, genius dummy strategy. I hope they make tens and hundreds of these. Now, talking about Ukrainian drones and shells, in the recent months, tables have turned. It was always more shells than drones. But right now, the official information is that Ukraine is shooting out 2,000 artillery shells per day all across the front, while Russia is shooting about 10,000 artillery shells all across the front. So the difference is 5 times. 5 times. Now, tell me again, other war where the enemy, where one side is shooting 5 times more shells and it's still a draw. Usually, if you shoot 5 times more shells, you will win. Robust as that. But no, it doesn't help the Russians because their artillery, a huge portion of those 10,000 come from North Korea. Also, the artillery pieces come from North Korea, meaning they're not accurate at all. The opposite is true. They're wildly inaccurate, and some of the shells explode in the barrel. Some of them don't fly at all, fly too far. There are duds. These numbers don't translate directly to them having actually 10,000 more shells than Ukraine every day, but a lot of them don't work. The thing is, recent months were the first months in this entire war where Ukraine destroyed more Russian vehicles and manpower with drones than with artillery shells. This goes to show that Ukraine has been incredibly effective in producing their drones, and also the volunteers and the donators. I'll get to it. It's you guys actually. 90%, up to 90% of all of the small kamikaze drones in Ukraine, and there are tens of thousands a month, are funded by people like you. If you have donated to my fundraisers, and you have seen the video yesterday also, for example, when I delivered these FPVs to SBU Alpha, they are destroying more Russian vehicles than artillery in Ukraine now. And you made it possible. It's not Ukrainian government. Unfortunately, the truth is, Ukrainian government does not have even money to pay for the soldiers. They're doing it because of the Western aid. The FPV drones are mostly funded by donators. You. So you are responsible for the fact that now the most effective way to destroy Russian vehicles is not artillery, but drones, and you're buying these drones. So thank you to all of the donators who donated to the previous campaign. We delivered with Noel up to 230 FPVs to SBU Alpha. I'll be letting you know about my future fundraiser, so just keep an eye on my channel. If you want to donate, hold on to your money. I will do regular fundraisers. I'll provide you all of the footage about delivering them. Just hold on, be patient with it. Hold on to the money. Now, my friends, I'll read you patron names. These people are responsible for my security. I go to Ukraine, I put all of my energy, I got sick, I put everything I have to going there, traveling, making the content, delivering the drones, and I don't have to worry about my funding, about living. I really don't, because of the patrons. So I'll read you many names now, with my Estonian pronunciation. Are you ready for some ear bleeding? You are? You can never be ready for it. Let's go. Klaine plus Janike Ideus. Tunder Nugets. Pierre Morin. Anton Pokkotenko. Ukrainian. Mikhail Toi. Julian Kainei. Mikke Matkevs. Florian Möller. Ron Stoops. Karen Niven. Karl Lingelbach. Suomen vodka mestari. Perkele. That is it. Kiitos to my Finnish friends. Also, the last one gotta be Finnish. Until my next video, my friends, it will be tomorrow. And be back tomorrow. After that, on the Saturday, I'm going to the US for 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks. I'll be traveling around the US and Canada, meeting people, trying to gather support for Ukraine. I mean, we have the same mission, you, the donators, the viewers, and me. So I'll try to make videos in the US. It's gonna be very difficult because I'll be traveling, meeting people, interviews, and making these videos. So if I skip some days, please forgive me. I'll try to work as much as I can in the US. Until then, my friends, Slava Ukraini. Bye-bye.